Hey guys, what's up? Um, oh man, I just had a pretty rough conversation with my mom. I had went to go see her because the endo appointment costed a lot more than I thought, and so I had to reschedule. And I was really stressed out, and it was near her place of work. So I went into her office and was like, "Hey, yeah," and she could see something was wrong, and like, I was like, I'm not coming in here to ask you for the money. Like, I'm not doing that. I'm just, sometimes you just need to vent, blah, blah, blah. So, she, like, pulls me aside and is like, well, let's take a walk. I'm like, okay. So, she basically, like, tells me straight up that I'm a freak and nobody will ever take me seriously and everybody's laughing behind my back and all this shit, and her and dad are never gonna, like, they're always gonna see me as, a woman, blah blah blah, and I'm just like, what the fuck? And I couldn't help but cry. Like, she just said, like, the meanest things. She said that I look too much like a female, and I do too many female characteristics apparently. And I was like, okay. She's like, well, you talk to us like you're a daughter. And I was like, what? I was like, that makes no sense. And she says, well, you're too short to be. And I was like, okay, listen, I've already gotten over that point. I was like, okay. And then she said something to the effect of that, no one's ever going to take me seriously, that I'm wasting my time doing this because I still won't be happy. She's like, well, ever since you started therapy, you don't seem that happy. And I was like, first of all, you have no idea what I talk about my therapy sessions. I'm like, my therapy sessions are very self-healing. And she just said, well, and then the icing on the cake is she basically said that she was happy with everything in her life except me. I mean, what the fuck? Why and I just said, so you're gonna blame all the problems you have right now on me in my transition. I was like, that is the most childish thing I've ever heard. And I was like, I know you're trying to make me feel guilty. I know exactly what you're trying to do. I was like, you're trying to manipulate me into not doing this. I was like, you know what? Never mind. I'm sorry I came here. And I just left. And then she called me, was crying, was like, oh, I'm praying for you, blah, blah, blah. I was just like, you just basically said that I'm like, the root of all evil to you. I'm like, I'm not a bad person. And she's just like, you're never going to be happy. No one's going to take you seriously. She's like, all your friends are just fucking saying shit because they're just saying what you want to hear, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, I don't really think my friends would say that. Like, it just makes me really irritated, and made me really it made me really depressed and sad, and I just fucking broke down in tears, which I'm trying not to do right now, because I'm just like, first of all, I mean, do you guys think I'm gonna pass? Like, I think I'm gonna pass just fine, and, like, right now, I kind of get the, weird gender stare or whatever, and, like, granted, yeah, I'm not in the most, like, accepting place in the world, but I don't really feel like it's gonna be I think once the process starts, it's going to be a little easier, and, like, I don't, I don't know, I don't really understand. I don't really understand why she would say that. I don't understand why she would go out of her way to, again, remind me how much she doesn't like the process. And I'm just like, I was like, I was just coming here to, like, let you into my life more, which she says I clearly don't constantly. She's constantly just like, you have so many walls, you have so many layers, and she's just like, when you start whatever, a year, 3 years from now or whatever, you're just going to have more layers, only it's going to be behind a beard. And I was like, what? Like, she just said, you're making the biggest mistake of your life. And she's completely, I'm just like, why am I a part of this family? Like, you guys clearly have no idea what the fuck is going on with me. And she's just like, well, I know you. And I'm like, you have no idea who I am. Her and I have never, ever ever have gotten along. Ever. Ever. And then she magically thinks that we have this great relationship, and I'm like, no, we've never had a great relationship. Ever. I just said, I don't understand why you think that we would have a great relationship, because we don't. I was like, we don't, I'm like, right now, I thought it was average, but I'm like, right now it's verging on horrible, because I'm like, I don't understand why you just said that. Like, I don't understand why you just busted out all of a sudden. I'm like, I'm trying to be more open with you about, like, day-to-day struggles, and I'm like, yeah, transition is, like, my day-to-day. And I'm like, I don't tell you half the shit that goes through my mind. I don't tell you what I do. I don't tell you how bad the dysphoria affects me some days. I just, I keep it all to myself. And she's just like, well, that's not healthy. I was like, I'm obviously not going to fucking tell it to you, because you're constantly like, you're going to be a freak, and you're never going to pass, and you're too feminine, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, name one thing that is feminine about me. She goes, well, you're very emotional. I said, well, the estrogen in my body makes me emotional. I said, because I can tell you right now, there are plenty of M to Fs that are much more emotional than I, and there are many men who are much more emotional than I. And I said, yeah, I think I'm allowed to be emotional. That's what I said. I said, because right now I'm very emotional, because, you're telling me, first of all, in a very public place, how much of a disappointment I am, how much of a fucking